Hi, and welcome to episode 3. This is one that you might find a little bit controversial because it's about why I'm ambivalent about bullying. 5 years, 39 weeks a year, 5 days a week, 6 to 7 hours a day. That's the period of time that my real name was replaced by the word spaz, spastic, any number of creative derivatives, and that was interspersed with physical altercations and threats of violence. In the intro video I mentioned Meet the Superhumans, the advert that Channel 4 produced for the Paralympics back in 2012. What do you think it is that makes someone a superhuman? How about the motivation and learning how to turn a negative experience into a positive outcome? But how do you turn a negative into a positive unless you've experienced the negative first? It's quite an intriguing question. Phone call. Hello, Cal speaking. Hello? Yeah. You've heard about an accident, a road traffic accident in the last few years? Okay, before we go any further, can I just ask you a question? The company that you work for encourages you to lie to people in order to elicit information. How do you feel about yourself? Where was I? About turning a negative into a positive. So how do you turn a negative into a positive unless you've experienced the negative first? How do you turn a negative experience into a positive outcome? How do you do that? There is just so much positive mental attitude bull out there. Here's some examples. Now the reason I say all this is bull is because these things are great. I mean, you can find them on Instagram and Facebook and they can be quite uplifting, but they're only a quick hit. And the reason why they're only a quick hit is because they're great at telling you what to do, but they don't tell you how to do it. Now I'm only going to touch on the how in this video with pointers. So here's one of those pointers. Your greatest weaknesses have the potential to be your greatest strengths. Your greatest strengths all have their roots in your greatest weaknesses. The most beautiful roses grow towards the glory of the sun, and all the time their roots are buried in the richest shit. Understanding and overcoming your weaknesses leads to your greatest strengths, and that's where superhuman ability really lies. You can look at this scientifically. It's all cause and effect, and of actions having equal and opposite reaction. The great thing about counselling and psychotherapy is they can give you coping strategies to help you deal with your emotional pain. But to be truly great, you need to go beyond coping. We're not born in life to just cope. Superhumans develop excelling strategies. My weaknesses, apart from the fact that I looked physically different to everybody else, I'm in no way symmetrical. I felt physically weak at school. As I touched on in the last video about my medical experiences, I wasn't a very well child. I wasn't a very well kid. And, as a consequence, I was excluded from a lot of physical activities as a child. And that was my starting point. I felt physically weak. And so I started lifting weights. And I started with something really small, a doorstop. We had this cast aluminium doorstop at home. As a young boy, that's what I started lifting. I also used to trawl this scrapyard nearby and come back with bits of metal and stuff that intrigued me, like cogs and wheels and things. And I put them all in a bag, and that bag gradually got heavier. The more I added to it, the heavier that bag got. I used to call it my metal collection. I used to lift that bag and use that. That was one of my early weights that I used to lift to get stronger. Then for birthdays and Christmas, I asked for weights, and I got proper dumbbells and barbells. Now the other area that I felt weak in was in my ability to defend myself. And when I left college and started working as a trainee manager at a local supermarket, and I had money coming in, I took up karate because I wanted to be physically stronger and physically able to fight back. The funny thing was, the more I got into karate and the stronger I felt because of all the exercising I was doing, I actually also wanted to heal people as well as hurt them. So I started at night school and I started studying human biology and massage courses and physical therapy courses. But there was only one problem. I'd been out of education for quite a while and I just couldn't retain any of the information in here. Then one Christmas I saw Paul Daniels on the telly and he did this memory stunt where he'd memorise the entire Bible. And at the end of it, he brought on the chap who'd taught him how to do that, a chap called Tony Buzan. Tony Buzan wrote books, and I went out and bought as many books as I could to do with memory and how to improve my brain power. This is just a small part of the collection of books that I ended up buying. And I found there were so many more people out there who'd written about the same subjects, and I learned from them all. I achieved 98% in those exams. I walked into those exams knowing I could not fail. I have never felt so confident in all my life. So that knowledge that I acquired, that applied knowledge, made me realise that I could learn absolutely anything. Now, I'd been working as a manager, a trainee manager when I left college at the local supermarket. I went on to do a managerial role, and I failed miserably. I was terrible at it. But what I started doing, in my jobs after that, I started watching the managers that I was working for, paying attention to what they did that worked and what they did that didn't work, absorbing it all up here. One of the best managers that I learned from was at Index in Scarborough. I wrote a proposal called the Index Improvement Proposal and posted it off to the MD, the Human Resources Manager and the Training Manager. So I remember the day that I stood poised outside the post office with these proposals in envelopes in the mouth of the letterbox, terrified about the possible consequences of posting these things. But I took a deep breath and I did it. Thankfully they were really favourably received, and the MD had me go through to Liverpool to have a discussion about how my ideas might be implemented across the company. And I didn't go through with it. I went to meet them, but I didn't go through with the implementation of the ideas because I was too scared. When I left Index and moved to York, I was on the bones of my backside. I had debts to clear and I had no money for socialising. So I spent the first 2 years working as a cleaner at Marks and Spencer's. All I did when I got in on a night was just read. In a 2-year span I read over 200 books on philosophy, psychology, religion, and threw in some fiction as well for good measure. Now at the end of that 2-year span I'd read all those books and I realised I had loads of knowledge stored up here, but none of it was backed with experience. And then life presented me with an opportunity to put some stuff into practice, because I was offered the job of managing the contract cleaning team at Marks and Spencer's, and I turned it down several times because I was too scared. Thankfully, my martial arts instructor, Gary, his words were ringing in my ears about testifying to the truth. He once said, it's okay having a load of knowledge about things, but unless you actually put things into practice, it just doesn't really mean anything. So armed with this mental kick up the backside that I was giving myself, I knew I could learn anything. I knew I could learn how to be a good manager. Even though I'd failed terribly at it beforehand, I knew I could learn to do it. Eventually I accepted, and I'm glad I did. That went on to be one of the most successful periods of my life in terms of personal growth and development. And I was so good at what I did, all my staff nominated me for Employee of the Month. It's not often managers get nominated by their team. Because of that role, and because of my previous experiences of being bullied, I knew that I wanted to help other people become stronger too, because I realised I'd become stronger, and I wanted to help other people do that. So I started volunteering at the Samaritans. I mentored in schools to help children with that are having difficulties. I took on some casual paid work with the youth offending team, dealing with troubled teenagers. I did some work at a mental health institution in York as well, and I took on some counselling courses to help me develop some skills. I did really well in those courses. So eventually I left cleaning and went to work in mental health for a while. And during that period I was continuing my counselling development skills. And I underwent counselling therapy as a means of moving that forward. And at the end of that therapy, I realised I spent a lot of time and effort in that, but I realised I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I realised I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to follow more creative pursuits. I ended up back working in cleaning. I ended up being a troubleshooter for the company I worked for. During that period as well, I also began learning to play the saxophone, which is no mean feat for somebody with a facial paralysis that can't hold the embouchure very well. The reason I wanted to do that was because at school, a music teacher once brought a saxophone in, and I got up to have a go and I could not get a tweet out of it, and it just added to more ridicule that I got. But I've always loved the sound of a saxophone. So I took some lessons and I got that I could actually play it. The snag was, I love the sound of a well-played sax, and that's why I had to stop playing. So this began a big creative period in my life, because I went on to study creative writing, and I now write a creative writing blog. I went on to learn the bass guitar, the baritone ukulele, the tenor guitar, standard ukulele, and then the cajon. And I've played gigs, I've organised music gigs and so on. At work I went on to become an area manager. I didn't like that as much as the site management because it was a little bit too spread out for me, and I preferred the close relationships you developed with your team. So during that I also went on to do some teaching and training qualifications at night school as well. I did really well in those courses. Then I got made redundant at 45. And I vowed I would never have all my income coming from one source again. And so there, from that point onwards, I began self-employment. I run a domestic cleaning operation in York, and I have other little income streams and developing other income streams too. Can you see the strengths that came from the weaknesses? We all have superhuman qualities, and we all have superhuman potential. And it's all about turning around our weaknesses and turning them into strengths. So yes, I'm ambivalent about bullying. Being bullied as a consequence of the paralysis gave me motivation to conquer and understand my fears. It gave me skills I simply would not have had the motivation to develop. Don't get me wrong, there's a dark side to this too, but I'll cover more about that in future episodes. Do I think bullying should be stopped? This is a tricky one. Personally, I don't think you can stop it. A bully feels like a no one, and they're trying to make someone feel like a no one so that they can feel like a someone. It's somebody who feels insecure about themselves trying to make other people feel insecure so that they can feel more secure. And there will always be people who feel like a no one. There will always be people who feel insecure. There will always be people who have tough times and take it out on others. So I don't think you will stop it. Would I want anybody else to experience what I've experienced? I don't know. Because I'm looking at this with hindsight, and I know that I've had good support and guidance along the way, and that's been really massively helpful. And I think that's really important. I think if people are given good support and guidance and taught, shown how to develop their weaknesses into strengths, I think that's probably a good way forward. I'd love to know what you think. If you were bullied, and if you've got any thoughts on this at all whatsoever, no matter what your position, what your standpoint is, please feel free to comment in the comments below. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please share it, because I'd really love to know what everybody thinks about this topic, because I think it's quite a controversial topic, and I'd love to know if there are more people out there who are a bit like me about this, who are a bit uncertain about where the land lies. Please like, subscribe and share, and you can follow me on Twitter at York House Cleaner, but I'll put some graphics up somewhere here or there or there or there. They'll appear somewhere. That'll show you where all these things are. So, until the next time, thank you so much for sticking with me. If you've got to the end, you're awesome.